Howdy, everybody. We are about a week from Bears training camp in Bourbonnais, report day. This is Robert Zaglinski, host of Windy City Gridiron Radio, joined by the editor-in-chief of WCG, Lester Wiltfong. You can follow Lester on Twitter at Wiltfong Jr. You can follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. And on this episode of WCG Radio, we're going to preview everything there is to preview concerning the Bears before training camp on a crucial building 2017 season. Lester, what's up tonight? I know you've had a crazy move the past few days.
Yeah, it's been rough. I've been moving this last weekend, so we're still trying to settle in. So my next the next month of weekends is pretty much tied up with unpacking. So that's no fun.
Well, did you set up the Wi-Fi? Because that's the most important thing in 2017, right? Did you set up the Wi-Fi?
Yes, the Wi-Fi is set up, so we're good there.
Okay. Yeah. The technology is perfect.
Yeah.
In better news, so the Bears apocalypse or sign of the apocalypse is finally over. Mitch Trubisky signed his contract. And the entire rookie class reported. Any thoughts on that before we jump into the positional previews and general roster talk, Lester? Because there seemed to be a lot of panic. I know I didn't put that in the rundown for us, but there seemed to be a lot of panic building up. There wasn't, from anyone that was connected, there wasn't any real concern.
There was some concern from fans. I know if you look at like stuff on Facebook, stuff on Twitter, and then stuff on our site, the comment section, a lot of people are a little nervous that he wasn't going to sign. But I mean, with the way the contract's set up, it's a slotted contract these days. Plus, as a quarterback, there's no way the Bears weren't going to get him in camp. The Bears have way too much riding on it. The Bears moved up in the draft to get him. If they end up, having him sit out because of some offset language, they're going to have some real explaining to do. So there's no way he wasn't going to get in camp. I wasn't surprised that he signed.
The PR blast was probably what you just noted would have been the craziest. There's no way a 3-13 team that just drafted a quarterback number 2 overall could have had him miss any days. Even one day would have probably been inconsequential. Largely, it would have been like the Kevin White situation with his leg, but just like the optics of the situation, and they got it done. I believe that was yesterday was rookie report day. They're only doing strength and conditioning and like stretching and things like that, so it didn't matter too much in the consequence of it. And we have nothing to be worried about. The entire rookie class is signed. Let's jump right back into. We're going to go through every unit, so we're going to go through coaches, special teams, offense, and the defense, of course. So we'll start with the coaches. Lester, there was a lot of turnover immediately in the offseason. The Bears lost their running back coach. They lost their offensive line coach for different reasons. Of course, some of these guys were promoted, and their outside linebackers coach. What difference do you think some of these new position coaches will make or break the Bears as a team? Who makes the biggest impact? There are some instances like Vic Fangio having a greater say in the outside linebackers, for example.
Yeah, I think if anything, that's going to bring a little bit of excitement to the team. They have some brand new blood in there. I don't think it's, I mean, if it was a coordinator, it'd be a big deal. But the fact that it's just the position coaches, I mean, these guys are all highly qualified coaches. It's not like they're bringing guys off the street that have no idea what they're doing. The guys they lost were good. The guys they brought in were good. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
Well, the guys they lost were, ironically, the position coaches for the 3 gems of the 2016 class for Leonard Floyd, Jordan Howard, and Cody Whitehair. But if these guys, to me, it makes a difference, and it'll be an adjustment period for those guys. But if they're supposed to be the studs and franchise blocks and cornerstones that they are, they should be able to succeed with whoever they, you'd like some continuity. But if they're as talented, if they've made a jump in their sophomore season, which is typically when NFL players make their biggest jump from the rookie to sophomore season, it shouldn't matter who's coaching them. They should be ready at this point. They're veterans at this point, even if it's their second year. So I've always thought that was a little bit exaggerated.
From the fan standpoint, that's something that they always want to talk about. But honestly, behind the scenes, these guys are very good coaches, and they'll get the job done. And then you mentioned those players; they're very talented. So I have no concerns over there being a problem with the coaching staff this year. I mean, John Fox is another story, but
as far as we have to talk John Fox. So
yeah.
there was a report recently of Dowell Loggins, for example, being a head coaching candidate. Obviously has to do something more with this Bears offense that could have struggles. John Fox has won 9 games in 2 seasons. And then Vic Fangio's defense hasn't – I mean, he's made – I don't want to say it too well. He's made a chicken sandwich out of chicken shit. I mean, that's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
But they haven't performed to his typical standard. They haven't performed to the standard he had in San Francisco. Probably some of that's talent. Which of those guys has the most pressure on them in 2017?
It's got to be Fox. I mean, Fox has to win some games. I mean, the most important thing this year is obviously getting the rookies ready, getting Mitch Trubisky ready. But, Fox has got to get some wins. I mean, a fan base can't go through 3 really, really disappointing seasons. And that's just bad. Yes, it's a rebuild, but, we have to see some improvement from the young guys like Floyd, Howard, you mentioned Whitehair. We have to see the quarterback, make some strides there, whether it's Trubisky or other Glennon. I'm not sure if Trubisky's going to get in. I'm assuming he's going to play at some point because they always play the rookie quarterbacks. They're always going to get in somehow. But you got to see some improvement there. And I think Fox has probably the most pressure on him. I mean, the other guys are going to find jobs somewhere else. This could be it for Fox. If he can't succeed here in Chicago, this may be his last hurrah.
As far that's interesting to me. Does it matter as much because I've calmed down on this stance, or at least publicly. But there's so much. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it'll probably start up again if they really struggle, but. There's so much turnover in the NFL. There's so much. Especially aside from the Bill Belichick's and the Mike Tomlins, and especially where the Bears are at in the rebuilding phase, they essentially drafted their franchise quarterback, who's probably not going to play much this year. He will eventually jump in from our vantage point. Is letting go Fox at the end of the season, and I know we're having this conversation pre-camp, and I know he has to have his expectations, but is it going to set them back in any fashion?
I don't think so, because I always look at what the Bears are doing, and I compare it to what they're doing in Oakland with the Raiders. I look at it's a 5-year rebuild there, and I think the Raiders are on their second head coach in the rebuild. So I think, if it happens, it's obviously it's something they have to work through, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, these guys are pros. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff about a guy learning a different offense, I think that's overblown a bit too. It's all a professional offense. If you got one down. There'll be some growing pains, but it's all about the reads and the concepts and the options you have with when you're out in the field. As far as the actual terminology is what's going to take a little longer to learn. But if there's a coaching change and you have a brand new guy coming in to coach Trubisky, if that's what's best for the franchise, that's what's best for the franchise.
I've previously said with you on this podcast that to me 2017 is more about the young talent and how they progress. But you just mentioned the win total, so. Let's set a concrete win total for Fox to stay with the Bears beyond 2017. What do you think?
Again, I think it's hard to give an actual number. I think if Fox only wins 5 games, if it's 5, but the young guys have all taken strides, I think that's maybe enough to keep them. Again, it all depends on how the losses are. If there's some Mark Trestman-esque kind of losses mixed in there, then I think you got to make a move. But if the team is still there, if the guys the veterans in the team are still with Fox, I think he rides it out. Unless it's a disaster.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. Probably 5 or 6 wins. There can't be any blowouts. They have to be generally competitive in most games. The defense, if they're healthy enough, will probably provide that, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's. I kind of left this on a general note to see what you would say. Give me a few predicted top storylines that are going to start popping out of camp every day for you in Bourbonnais. So give me like 2. Give me 1 or 2 right now. We'll just go back and forth and a little reasoning. That's how we'll do this.
I think the Kevin White drama is going to be a big thing. The Bears fans want to see him. The coaches want to see him. I think with him, he's going to have a good camp if he's in shape. I mean, that's the big thing with him. If he's healthy and he's in shape, he's going to have a good camp. But just the cloud over his career. The Bears have to do something with that, and hopefully he's able to come out of it and have a great career.
I'll go with the first one of mine. I'll talk about Pernell McPhee. I'm not sure if he's going to look like his dominant self at first, but he's certainly going to look more fluid. People are going to note his speed off the edge because he did slim down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that since he didn't really participate in camp last year, I think he'll bring a bit of he'll bring a bit of an edge to camp, a little bit of intensity to the defense that at times they were sort of lacking, even when he was playing himself into shape after coming back off PUP last year. So Pernell McPhee, outside of Leonard Floyd, outside of Goldman, I mean, that's probably someone you want to see that the Bears are highlighting as well in camp.
I think with McPhee, I think him being a veteran on the team is going to be a big deal too. You know, you heard Floyd talk a lot about him last year in the offseason. I think it's a full camp with Floyd and McPhee together is going to be really good for Floyd.
It'll be a nice little bounce off. I mean, McPhee is still the captain unless something changes this year. He's been a captain the last 2 seasons, so obviously he's had the effect. Even if he's been significantly held back by that knee injury. Another one you can't not talk about it, and we'll get to it probably a little later on too. Trubisky and Glennon. There is no official open competition, but as I pointed out on Twitter yesterday, as I pointed out numerous times, there is. I mean, you need a magnifying glass to specifically find one explicit instance where the Bears ruled out Trubisky winning the job out of camp. They declared Glennon the starter, but they have said nothing else after that fact. Winning job out of camp or even playing this year. So that's going to be something to watch, see how the rookie we'll see how the rookie performs against the veteran that's supposed to be more experienced and that's supposed to have a handle of how to handle an NFL huddle.
You know, I think they're both going to look okay in camp. I think with Glennon, he's not as accurate as Trubisky as far as, you know, what they've done. Obviously with Trubisky, he's only done in college, but you know, he's known for his accuracy. So he may look really good in shorts. He may look really good in camp. You know, we'll know more, you know, once the real game started in preseason. But even then, it's going to be hard to say for sure. I mean, if you look at Brian Hoyer last year in preseason, he looked awful. I mean, he was at the point where he was terrible. Then in the real games, you know, he had 4 straight games where he passed for over 300 yards. So I mean, this is it's preseason is one thing. I mean, real games another. I think unless the drastic happens with Glenn, I don't think anyway that Trubisky will beat him out.
Yeah, at least in week 1. I think
week one.
But and this is something we'll discuss later, probably by mid-season or by November, this is a conversation you start to have. Any other storylines that come to mind for you before we move on?
I think those are the big ones. You know, the stuff with the injuries. I mean, injuries are pretty vacant right now. I think you have Danny Trevathan, the only guy that may have a problem here. You know, if he comes back and goes to PUP list, is going to be a big storyline. But other than that, the Bears are healthy, and I think you know, they're primed for at least a really good, exciting camp.
Yeah, Adam Hogue, I was actually going to note that an injury since you bring it up. He mentioned that the Bears switched up their training camp schedule to where no practice is going to start up until 11:15, so players have an appropriate time to rest each day. They really want to combat the injuries. There's probably not going to be a lot of full contact, intense practices, and then the ones that are there, that they're going to really maximize those intensive practices. And that's a reason this year that rookies reported a week early, because they wanted to get them a little bit in tune for the upcoming grind of the next 4 or 5 months in their strength and conditioning program. So the Bears, at least it's nice to see them addressing something that really held them back last year. So it's held them back largely part of the last 2 years. So,
yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a real smart way to go. There's only 5 teams that had them come early, which is kind of odd. I'm not sure why all teams don't do it, but I think it may be something we see in the future where all the teams are starting to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the CBA part, like stipulations, hold that back, but I don't see why teams haven't, like, I'm not going to say abused because that's a bad word, but like taking advantage of loopholes. Like, this is a nice thing. You can have rookies and you don't have to do anything with them on the field, but you can start getting them, working them in. It's an intelligent, creative move, at least relative to NFL standards. Okay, so we had the Trubisky Glennon talk, so let's preview the Bears offense. So we've talked the quarterbacks. Glennon likely, and we're of the expectation that Glennon will eventually he'll eventually be usurped by Trubisky. So But to start, what do you think his performance will be like? How do you think he'll be supported, Lester?
I think he's a decent quarterback. I compare him to Hoyer. I mean, I know a lot of Bears fans are sick of the Hoyer talk, but he played decent football last year. I mean, the Bears didn't get any wins. The Bears were struggling to score points, but Hoyer plays a style of football that John Fox wants him to play. He wants him to be safe with the ball, and that's the same thing that they'll get from Glennon. So I think Glennon's going to be safe, he's going to be smart. But the thing with Glennon, he has a little bit of a bigger arm than Hoyer, so you should see a few more shots downfield. And again, if the running game's clicking, I mean, that's going to make Lennon look better. The tight ends look better. The receivers look better. It's all about the run game with the Bears this year.
If and when Trubisky steps in, what do you think we can expect? Because that'll be different. The Bears will probably run the ball even more or maybe even open the playbook. It's really going to depend on the state of the team. So what kind of expectations do you see there?
I think it'll be kind of like what we saw with Hoyer as far as the game plan. With Hoyer in the game was a lot of real short stuff. I think that's what they kind of do with the rookie at first. But again, he has he has a pretty good arm. I think he doesn't have an arm like Jay Cutler, but he has a pretty good arm. So I think he can make all the throws in the NFL. Eventually, he'll have the whole playbook open to him. But to start, they're going to bring him along slowly. And just kind of get him used to the pro game. But again, it's going to be a few weeks down the road. But again, to that point, start on week 1. If it happens, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that's been a debate. Like, that the Bears have this set plan that they're going to they have their set plan now, but things change, things get fluid.
Things can change.
They haven't seen Trubisky in pads. They haven't seen him in games. You don't know how he's going to play. You don't know how Glennon's going to look in the offense. If they think Trubisky's better than Glennon, all that plan goes out the window, and they're going to play him against the defending NFC champions. Welcome to the NFL. That's how it works.
Yep. Plans can change in a minute in the NFL. I mean, the plan was for Glennon to be the guy all year, and then they had a chance to get to move up to get Trubisky. So the plans changed. The plans could change again, and it could be Glennon to the bench. Who knows what'll happen until the game starts. Okay.
So as far as the guys protecting Trubisky and Glennon, the offensive line, Kyle Long's still recovering from an ankle injury. Cody Whitehair, probably someone that really shined as a rookie last year, could be in line for a Pro Bowl or maybe potentially an All-Pro appearance this year. Josh Sitton plugging along. What can we expect from the offensive line? Because Pro Football Focus actually cited the Bears' offensive line as top 5, which was that's kind of shocking to me because, as you'll know, I don't think the Bears' bookends and Charles Leno and Bobby Massey are necessarily awful, but I do think they hold them back. To me, the Bears' offensive line is a little more middling. They're competent. That's what you want, but they're a piece away from being a truly great line, like Ricky Wagner. Just saying. What do you think?
Well, I think the Bears play to their strengths. I mean, they're like I said, they're gonna run. It's going to be a lot of quick passes. They're not going to expect Leno and Massey to be on an island much. But when they are with Leno, he's a decent pass blocker. With the other side, they're going to have to chip help. But the Bears did not give up a lot of sacks last year. I think that you're going to kind of see the same kind of style of play. Then if you mentioned Long, if he's healthy, that just makes that line that much better. And I'm not really worried about the O-line at all. The tackles, they're okay. They're serviceable. But with the guy on the left side with Leno, he's still young enough where he could take another step and play. So we'll have to see what happens here. Plus, he's playing for a contract, so that's a lot of guys. When that happens, they really, they're playing for the money.
I just want to note on that Leno playing for a contract that for fans not to get angry when Ryan Pace extends Charles Leno and then uses his first-round pick on a left tackle, because that is very much a possibility. Just looking.
It might happen.
That is very much a possibility. Doing the same thing with his offensive line like he did with his quarterback and other positions. You load up there. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of Leno and Massey, but I think the Bears loading up a little bit at tight end. You're going to see a lot of double tight sets. Maybe sometimes you'll see a tight end lineup as a fullback with double tight. So that's sort of going to help the Bears offense. You're going to see a lot of play action. I compared it to, I think in a mailbag, actually, officially, I compared it to the concepts of to like the 2012 Texans, the peak Texans with Matt Schaub and Arian Foster. Arian Foster's a little bit of a different back than Jordan Howard, but a lot of zone reads, a lot of crossing routes, maybe really one dominant receiver you can trust, and having 2 or 3 tight ends you can rely on. Maybe the Bears will potentially have a little more star power at tight end, but that's the kind of offense you're going to be able to expect. It's going to be able to keep them in many games. Oh, excuse me. But or rather, they're not going to really be able to keep up in any shootouts, but it's ideal for the personnel they have.
That's what John Fox wants to do, so I think that's exactly what they're going to do this year.
They're going to pound the ball. I just mentioned that one receiver they can probably really rely on, right now at least, Cameron Meredith, who's fully recovered from his thumb injury. It's a bit of a shaky receiving group. If we're going to be honest, it is bottom third in the league because there's just so many questions. Yeah. There's a lot of competition to iron out. Could this group hold back the Bears, even if the Bears have less of a focus on them in the passing game? How much of a detriment is it going to be offensively in 2017?
If you look at the receivers, each player has a question mark surrounding them, whether it's injury, whether it's production in the past. Then with Cam Meredith, he's a guy that he's only done it for 1 year, so we have to see him do it again just to make sure he is what he is. But I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's just a really hardworking kid, and I'm not really worried about him. But with that being said, we still got to see him do it. We got to see him do it as the man now, and I think he can make that step up and play.
Another question mark, obviously, Kevin White has played in 4 of 32 games. He was a heavily hyped prospect. You'd love to see any production from him. You'd love to see him at least play a full season, even if he's awful. A lot of question marks there. The competition, actually, to me, probably one of the more fascinating competitions, which I'll outline in the coming days. Victor Cruz and Kendall Wright and Marcus Wheaton for that third receiver job. That's probably going to be the check down guy for Glennon or Trubisky. So that's actually pretty crucial. And it's not even just 2017. This might be the kind of long-term guy if you can settle in. These guys outside of Cruz is really the only older guy, and he's only 30 years old. So you could be locking in a long-term position here. I'm kind of curious to see how that works out, because if White doesn't contribute, at least you'll have that guy. At least you'll have the guy on the inside.
Yeah, that's a key right there with that slot, the slot position. One of those guys have to really take control of that job. I'm excited to see how Cruz looks after his injury. Cruz and Wright boasted that the teams held them back last year. So we'll have to see if that's the truth, and those guys are both 100% and really ready to play some football.
Do you think we'll see the salsa dancing of Cruz in his prime, or Kendall Wright leading the Titans in receiving 4 years ago? You think we see that? Probably not.
No,
probably
but
not.
Probably not. But we'll see.
All right, let's talk the tight ends. I kind of touched on them a little bit. So Adam Shaheen. It's actually a little bit of a stacked group. It's kind of interesting to me too. So Adam Shaheen, Zach Miller, Deion Sims, Ben Broniker, and Daniel Brown. I mentioned a little bit of the zone read offense. I mentioned a little bit of the play action. But who do you kind of see as the odd guys out here? Who do you see as guys to watch out for in terms of how they'll be implemented by Dowell Loggins, the head coaching candidate, this will be really creative for him to do?
I think Sims is a guy that's a lot more athletic than people realize. He's a good athlete. He's a decent blocker. He's pretty good as a run blocker and a pass blocker. So you're going to see him probably on the field most of the time. He should dominate the snaps. If you look at the money they gave him, he's going to be the number one. I know a lot of fans think that Zach Miller is the guy coming back, but at 32 with all those injuries, I think Zach Miller could be the odd man out. And I'm a big Zach Miller fan. I'm just looking at the way the NFL is. The older guy, the injured guy, is usually the first guy that goes. So I'm not sure how much they feel they can trust him, especially with a guy like Brown, who is a similar player to what you get from Miller. And then you have Shaheen, who's also a real close count.
Well, Shaheen's going to make Shaheen's not even a question, though.
Sure, but I'm saying as far as what he brings to the team, as a rookie, he's going to be that move tight end. He's not going to be a guy blocking like crazy as a rookie because he's just not that skilled in it. But as a guy that can move for you and go all around the offense, it's going to be Shaheen. With Sims, he's the guy that's doing the most blocking and the stuff. Sneaking out on the play action passes. and Brown and Bronick. I think Bronick can do a little more as far as more of an H-back type role if that's what they want to go with. So I think you may have Brown and Miller fighting out for one spot if they carry 4 tight ends. What's going to come into that play is if they carry a fullback as well. So a lot of moving parts there at tight end and fullback position.
Yeah, and Ryan Pace even post-draft, post-free agency said that Deion Sims was a Y. I think this is a guy, he's another Akeem Hicks type, potentially on offense, to where he explodes in a way you haven't seen before. You know, he might catch 50 or 60 passes. It's really not out of the realm possibility, especially with the Bears' offensive design. And really, that whole group will probably be the most incremental to the Bears' offensive success, especially with Jordan Howard in the running game. They're going to be the ones that are setting the edge. They're going to be the ones that are the safety valves for the quarterbacks. And then obviously, let's finish up on offense with the Bears' bell cow, their best offensive player right now, Jordan Howard. We've talked the sophomore slumps before. We've talked and so let's sort of jump into that again. He did a commercial recently where he was running up the hill with Jared Payton, kind of in that mold. What can we expect from Jordan Howard in 2017 after a breakout rookie season?
I think he's going to have a really good year again. He's just a really he's in much better shape, he says. He worked on his strength. He worked on his endurance. He worked on his long speed because he wants to be able to take those runs to the house. I think we're going to see a huge year from Jordan Howard. Plus, he worked on his hands catching. He got a LASIK eye surgery. So this is a guy that is coming into the season really ready to be a premier tailback in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think I was actually going to say a bold prediction. Considering recent news surrounding Dallas's Ezekiel Elliott, I think Jordan Howard will finish with more rushing yards in 2017 than Elliott, and I think Jordan Howard He will.
I agree.
Probably a suspension might help a little bit with that. And I think Howard probably finishes in the top 5 in rushing again. If we're just going off of stable of crop you have across all NFL teams, that's probably less bold. But outside of our little bubble, people would call us crazy for saying that Howard will finish with more yards than Elliott. So I just wanted to note that.
Yeah, it's very possible, especially with the possible suspension coming to Elliott.
Let's move over to the defense, and I mean, by far, I mean I think you'll agree with me. The strength of the team, the front seven, particularly on the edges, particularly on the interior. So let's start with the defensive line. We've got Eddie Goldman, we've got Akeem Hicks, we've got Jay Howard, we've got Roy Robertson-Harris, Jonathan Bullard. These are guys coming into camp, and Mitch Unrein, I believe, and then some other undrafted free agents. Let's set the bar.
Don't forget Mitch Unrein.
Oh, Mitch Unrein. You can't forget Mitch Unrein. He is John Fox's. He's another good soldier for John Fox. You cannot forget him.
Yeah.
Let's set the bar for that group. That's a pretty talented group. Jay Howard, a guy coming over from Kansas City, to me, could have an Akeem Hicks impact with how the Bears unleash him. So, let's set that baseline.
I think Howard, the guy that you mentioned, if he's healthy, he's going to have a huge year for the Bears. I mean, he's a very talented player. He plays at the 5 tech opposite Hicks. I think with Hicks, Goldman, and Howard, if they're all healthy, man, this could be a really good front three. And then you mentioned the guys today. You mentioned your article with Bullard and Harris. Those 2 guys have a chance to be really good too. So I think this group, it's not getting a bunch of pub on a national level here, but this is a talented group, and I think that they could really surprise.
Yeah, and the thing about a defensive line that you always want, even if a 3-4 group's going to be different, they're going to have more run responsibilities. Oftentimes, the defensive ends will be responsible for 2 gaps as opposed to a 4-3 guy being able to pin his ears back. You still want to be able to have them come at you in waves. You'd prefer if – so as I mentioned today, I think Robertson, Harris, and Bullard are both going to make the roster. But the intriguing competition will be who gets more playing time, who's more of an impact player. I mean, Bullard's he was a projected first-round talent going into the 2016 draft. Do we get that player?
Yeah.
Robertson, Harris, I mean, I think he's I mean, at least in build, he's like Julius Pepper, 6'7", 285. Are we going to get another basketball player? Are we going to get a Cornelius Washington in terms of impact? I mean, Ryan Pace has done really well. Of every position group, I've been really impressed with how he's stacked up the front seven. It's a very old school in the trenches approach. A lot of teams recently have built their defenses around speed, which is something you should still do. But you know what I mean. Like the Legion of Boom with speedy secondary, with Atlanta, with their rugby style tackling, but they're both undersized. Meanwhile, the Bears are sticking with the original trend of beef up front, pushing you around. It's pretty commendable.
You know, they have their speed guy in Floyd, and I think the other guys are going to be more power.
Literally,
that's fine. That's all they got. I mean, I think they'll be okay, though. I think it's a good complement of pass rushers between Young, between Floyd. Houston's healthy this year, and he has something to offer as well.
Wait, sorry, I don't think we caught that last part. Who did you say?
Maybe Lamar Houston is healthy, and he can, because I mean, when you look at him when he was in Oakland, he was a pretty good player. So the Bears have not seen that guy yet. So maybe this is the year. But then again, you know, it's all about that knee injury with him.
I think what will make or break their success, I mean, it's obviously going to be the health, but it'll be health for particularly key players. So Leonard Floyd, in my mind, me, the number one fan of Leonard Floyd, will have a 14 to 16 sack season, provided Pernell McPhee is healthy for the majority of the year and on the field with him. If Pernell McPhee is in partnership and in tandem with him almost every time he's on the field, I mean, Floyd's primed to dominate any offensive tackles he's against. Considering, I can only imagine the jump he's going to make with the amount of work and hype we've been getting in the past few months. But it's going to be paramount that McPhee's with him. That's probably the key defensive, or the key defensive guy that needs to stay healthy on the Bears. There's Danny Trevathan, but I think Nick Kwiatkowski and the linebackers, since we're talking linebackers right now, he can probably fill in more admirably than we expect. That's not as big of an impact. There's Jarrell Freeman. He's the Mike. He's still going to be able to run the field freely. No, Pernell McPhee is that crucial apex point that the Bears need if they want to do anything on defense. That is.
You know, with McPhee though, he's never been healthy, so that's going to be huge. I mean, if he could play the full year healthy, you know, that's something that Bears fans have never seen, and it should be exciting.
That's probably maybe 16 games isn't realistic, but I mean, 12 to 16. Most of them, and actually being on the field for them, actually being functional, because instead of playing himself into shape as he did last year, that'll be huge for them. Maybe the biggest question mark on the team outside of quarterback, the secondary. So we have competitions at safety. I don't think there's any set outline starters. I think the only starter you can really pencil in is Quentin Demps. He's the veteran. He's the guy
at safety. Yeah.
He had 6 picks last year with the Texans, a career year. That's kind of the guy I think the Bears, you wrote about it. He's one of your most important Bears, your 10 most important Bears. He'll be that leader. He's going to set the tempo for all of the other young guys. But let's sort of outline the rest. So they signed Prince Amukamara. They signed Marcus Cooper. There's still Kyle Fuller, still here, still fighting for a job after all the drama last year of will he or won't he. Cravon LeBlanc, Bryce Callahan at nickel. I mean, this is a group that's gonna have a lot of drama. So let's predict the starters. I think that's the best way of going about this.
You know, I think you got to go with the 3 free agents are going to all start. You know, Prince and Cooper, and then Demps, and then the other safety I think eventually will be the rookie Jackson. But I think to start off the season, you know, I think they may go with the veteran Amos, just because I think he's, you know, I mean, he's not an exciting player. He's not very flashy, but he is a.
Wait, he's a sneaky superstar, isn't he? Right? Isn't that what
well, according to PFF,
secret.
But you know, he if you look at him, he's like a little better Chris Brzezinski in my opinion. He's a guy that should be a backup, but if he has to start, he's not going to really kill you on a team. But you really want a guy that is a little more productive in that spot. So that's why I think eventually it will be Jackson, because he is a little more on his hands, and he can make those picks.
Yeah, that's something the Bears are sorely lacking, especially at safety. I mean, Amos picked 0 picks in 2 years. You need guys that can take the ball in the secondary. If you have the front seven, as the Bears do, that's going to be able to create pressure on quarterbacks, I mean, it still takes talent for not everyone. Even if the ball is going to be laid out straight for you on a platter, it still takes talent to actually catch the ball and be in position for it. And the Bears, at least right now, don't have anyone that we can trust. I mean, Jackson might be, as you said, but you don't know at the moment.
We also have, the Bears also have former cornerback DeAndre Hall, who's making the possible transition to safety. And I'm really intrigued to see what he can do in camp. I'm not sure if he's going to actually be a full-time safety or more one of those guys that kind of do both. But he has some pretty good ball skills from college. He has great length. I think he's a guy that could thrive if he's just, if he's put at safety and just left there.
Give me a bold prediction, just whatever comes to your mind right now for the Bears defense.
For the secondary or for
anybody? Since we'll wrap it on this. We'll wrap the defense on this.
I'm not sure how bold it is, but I think Kyle Fuller may get cut this year. I'm just not sure if I think the stuff last year with the drama of the injury, there's something fishy going on there. I mean, it was a scope. I mean, it's not something that should be out a whole year for. The Bears didn't say what it was. There was no word from the player what it was. Is it one of the things where he didn't want to get back on the field? If that's the case, then he's going to be in Fox's doghouse. And so it's hard to say, but I think Fuller may be the odd man out there in the secondary.
Yeah, he's certainly
a first-round pick. Yeah,
with this regime, it's certainly too. I'll probably agree on that. Although I still like Fuller, but as soon as you burn a bridge with Fox and Pace, you essentially become dead to them. They start phasing you out a little bit more. That's kind of what we've seen with previous guys, with Martellus Bennett, with Brandon Marshall. Not that Fuller is on the same level of distraction, but as you noted, that situation was really, really strange. And he has a lot of work to do to get back in their good graces. So, but it might be too tough in the context of camp and in the preseason. I'm actually going to go with a brighter note. Again, cap optimism alert, but I think the Bears are going to have a top 10 defense this year. I don't know if it's. I think can you call a top 10 defense a winning unit? Is that what we would say?
Yeah.
7 or 8 win team. Because I don't think the Bears are going to be a playoff team, but a top 10 is good enough to be a contender. It's just that the other primary half of the team is going to be what holds them back. But this year, you'll see the frame of the future contenders that the Bears hope to be on their best unit, and you'll see a lot of flash from their front seven to particularly make that happen. Okay, so let's talk special teams. I'm not too concerned about. Obviously, the Bears can be better. If we're looking at official DVOA ratings, I have it pulled up. Hold on.
Oh, nice.
I do know the DVOA of any Pro Football Focus. I don't take too seriously every time. I think we have to note that. But DVOA is a bit of a more reliable aggregate, I think, in judging teams, just purely on a baseline. Yeah. So special teams wise, they were 18th last year. They could stand to get a little better. Yeah. That's middling. But it's not too much of a concern with me. You have guys, you've drafted new players, you have new free agents. That means guys are going to be bumped over to special teams, which will improve their performance. Yeah. There's better depth in the roster. Is there anything really of note that we can discuss here? There is the kicker competition, perhaps?
And I think the kicker could be a competition. I'm not sure if they're going to go with the rookie. I think it would be nice if they could, if they can get a guy like back when they got Gold, he was a guy that came in as a rookie. I think if you get a guy like that, with Phillips, I think that'd be great for the franchise. But he's a really a similar player to what they have already in Barth. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, if it was me, I go with the guy who's younger. If they're similar, but Fox may go with the veterans because he has the veteran instincts of a kicker, and he may trust him.
What are the veteran instincts of a kicker? I mean, Barth.
Like if the game's in the line, a rookie or a veteran you want out there, I think you may want the guy that you trust to make the kick because he's been there and he's done it before in the NFL. If they're similar, like I said, if they're similar, I'd go with the rookie. If they're similar, I think Fox, being a veteran guy, he'll go with the veteran.
To me, it's not that big of a deal, perhaps, until the Bears are going to be playing in big games to have the kicker. The narrative that surrounded Barth last year, after he actually settled in a little bit after, but I still think it would be better if Andy Phillips, for a college kicker, there were a lot of impressive college kickers, but he had a great resume. I kind of expect him to win that job. Actually, I'll contrast from you there. I kind of Barth isn't awful, but he's not great either. This isn't Adam Vinatieri. This isn't Steven Gostkowski. So even Fox can't deny the future of the position. I mean, seriously, there's a bit of a distinction there. So I'll have to say that. Otherwise, on special teams, you have your stalwarts, Joshua Bellamy, Chris Krasinski, Sherrick McManus. They're gonna generally work their way well as gunners again. Jeff Rogers, still a special teams coach. Unless the Bears bring back Dave Tobe, I don't think you can really expect too much of a market improvement. We'd want one, but it doesn't matter too much right now, at least.
Jackson may give the team some juice as a punt returner.
Oh, there is.
See what happens there with them.
Tariq Cohen, they may try him out there.
Tariq Cohen, so there are some athletes there that could, surprise. So, but other than that, I think you said it's going to be the same old. They'll be in the 18, 19, 15 range, something like that.
Let's jump over to the mailbag, and we'll do a final prediction thing at the end. Let's jump over to the mailbag. I have to pull up some of the questions we had. Okay, so the first one from at Ryan Wanders, we kind of answered this, the first half of this. He says, do you think Zach Miller will be on the 53? If not, what is his trade value? I actually don't think Miller makes the final roster. I understand that might be a hot take for some people listening. I understand this is but he's never caught more than 50 passes. He's never caught more than 500 yards. He hasn't proven to be able to stay healthy consistently the way you want a number one tight end to do. He's also 32 years old. And he's just going to get outright cut. I mean, a 32-year-old injury-prone tight end who's never hit any performance baselines the way he has, could you maybe a 6th or 7th round pick, if that? I don't see what the market would be for him. There's nothing there. And the Bears are – go ahead.
I mentioned I'm a fan of his. I like his story. I think he's a real good guy. I think he had a bunch of stuff he had to fight through with all the injuries, and he came back and he had one really good year for the Bears, and he got a nice contract out of it. But like you mentioned, the injuries are hard, and at 32 there is no trade value, unfortunately. So if he isn't going to go, he's just going to be cut.
Sticking with the tight ends again, people want to know about the tight ends. Thoughts, B2B prayers at One Young Spam asks, Daniel Brown versus Ben Braunecker position battle. Could you see them both being back? That depends on if the Bears carry 4 tight ends. Okay, so if you pencil in Adam, you pencil in Shaheen and Sims. Those are the guys you have, right, Lester? So would Brown? Do you think so Brown will probably be back if anything, or unless you like. I think you mentioned that you like Braunecker more as an H back. I guess this would be a prediction for what we think on the 53-man roster. Do you think the Bears are going to carry 4 tight ends?
Braunecker is a much better physical specimen than Brown is. Brown is a converted receiver. He's not really the greatest of blocker. Braunecker came from the Ivy Leagues. He wasn't a great blocker then, but I thought he made some strides as a rookie last year. Plus, Braunecker, he was, like I mentioned, as an H-back a little bit last year, so it kind of gives you that a little bit. I think it depends on how quickly they get some development from Shaheen. If he shows that he can, for sure be your move tight end out of the gate, then I think that lessens the need for having Brown on the roster. But again, I mentioned earlier, if they carry a fullback, it ends.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to bring up that in the next question. Matthew Bosley, one of our friends here, loyal friends, always conversing with us on Twitter. He asked, I'm pulling up the specific question so we don't get this wrong. Where do we have it? So with the additions, I'll start with the second part of his question because it was a different topic. Do you see the Bears carrying a roster? Or carrying a fullback on the roster? My apologies. It is hot.
I think they will. I think they will. I think the guy they got from the Lions is a really good player. I think he kind of got phased out of their offense because that's with Jim Bob Cooter, he just doesn't use a fullback. So I think with Dow Loggins when he was in Tennessee, he did use a fullback, And then, last year he just didn't have one on the roster that he trusted. So I think with the kid from the Lions, and I can't remember his name off the top of my
Michael
head.
Burton. You're going at me because I actually predicted that he won't make the roster in my post.
Oh, you didn't? I think he will, just because he brings that different element to the offense. I think with Jordan Howard, I think he would love to have a fullback in front of him. I think it'll help him out. Plus, with Burton, he's a decent guy out of the backfield as far as catching the ball. So, again, it all depends on what they want to do with the offense. If they carry 4 tight ends, they may not go with fullback. If they carry the fullback, it's going to be 3 tight ends.
Okay, so I think I'll take my official stance on this. They're going to carry 4 tight ends, and here's why. The best offenses in the league, have 3 or 4 tight ends they can use. The Falcons of last year have all the offensive versatility. New England as well, and they can all spread you out. The Bears can't do the spreading out yet because they don't have the receiver talent, but they do have the tight ends. And what carrying that extra tight end does, you don't have to use a spot. While Burton might be talented, you could maybe have Sims occasionally line up in the backfield, or you could occasionally have Broniker, who's more of a physical specimen, line up in the backfield as the lead blocker. I like Burton, but I wrote in the 90 a week or so ago. He's got to show that he has to explicitly show. I know he was phased out of the Lions offense, but he has to show it in camp that he's lighting up, that he brings something different, that he's more than just a fullback. If that's not meant negatively. I mean, I don't think he's going to be Mike Alstott or anything, but
no, yeah, with that, he has to show that he can do more on the team as well. I mean, when he was in Detroit, he was really active on the third phase. So I think he's a guy that has some versatility to you for what you can do as far as his roster spot. But then they may carry fullback, they may carry 4 tight ends, and they may go one less guy at receiver. So I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here for the Bears offense and what they're going to do with the 53-man roster.
TJ Schaus at TJ_Schaus asks, how much will the wide receivers' lack of experience and talent hurt play of Glennon? And more interestingly enough, do you think it delays Trubisky's debut?
I think the receivers, it depends who makes the roster. I mean, if Cruz makes it, if Wright makes it, I mean, these guys are all right. He was more of a freelance guy in Tennessee, so he has to prove that he can be on the same script as the offense. But if Cruz makes it, I mean, Cruz the pro. I mean, Cruz the guy that runs really good routes. So I think that, again, it's depending on which guy makes it. With Wheaton, he's a guy with a little lack of experience, but the word out of him from Pittsburgh was, he was hurt last year, but before that, he was primed to be a big part of that offense. I mean, he was really good. He had a great camp last year in Pittsburgh. His hands are decent. He has good speed. He was running really good crisp routes. Was the word out of Pittsburgh last year. So, maybe he surprised. I mean, the Bears gave him the most money of all the receivers this year.
I agree with that. I'll answer the second part of the question. I don't think – I mean, it's a concern for the quarterbacks to not have the kind of skill talent they want on the outside, at least for now. But if there's any delay on Trubisky's debut, it'll be if for some reason the offensive line experiences a massive injury on the interior, if it's not stable.
Yeah.
If that would be something that delays Trubisky's debut. If the offensive line isn't protecting Glennon well, then the Bears aren't going to risk throwing Trubisky in if by week 8 they've allowed 25 or 30 sacks. If they're on pace for a 50 sack season. That would be the only reason I think that would delay Trubisky debut.
Then we'll see Sanchez,
and then you'll see. They're going to put Sanchez in for Trubisky. Yeah, That's wishful thinking for fans that still think the Bears are going to stick to that plan no matter what. That's absolutely wishful thinking. Yeah. And then Trubisky fan account number 1 at John_Faker asks, I think this is a bit of a more philosophical question on Kyle Fuller. Can he be anything other than a bust? I mean, this assumes that he would make the roster, but if he doesn't make the roster, I mean, unequivocally to me, he's a bust. He was the number 14 overall pick. Yeah. He has to be. He 2014 NFL draft doesn't even make it. Doesn't get his option picked up. Doesn't make it to his second contract. Absolutely, he's a bust. He has to make the roster. Contribute.
I think if the Bears do cut him, which I think they will, I think he catches on somewhere else. He just needs the right system for him, and the right system for him was not the press man coverage. He's a guy that was pretty good as a rookie. And then, even when you look at what he did the first year with Vic Fangio, he played decent football. But again, something weird happened last year. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There was no reports of any drama, but something had to happen. A knee scope does not put you off for an entire season. So who knows what happened there?
Yeah, and if anything, if or when he does get cut, he'll probably sign in New England and then make everyone go with the narrative. Oh, what are the Bears doing? Blah, blah, blah,
just like Shea.
Like Shea. He's probably a bit of a better player than Shea, though, if we're going to be honest, in terms of talent. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish this up. I'll put you on the spot here. Who do you think? So this is the last podcast we're going to do before there's the actual football to discuss. Crazy! I'm doing the mind blowing motion here. Give me who you think the Bears will have in the 2017 or 2018 Pro Bowl in January.
I think Cody Whitehair makes it. I think Jordan Howard makes it. And I'm going to go with your guy, Leonard Floyd. I think he's going to make it.
Money.
I knew it.
I am excited. I think I'll add to that. This is a bit of a more camp optimism. I think Akeem Hicks with another solid season, 5 or 6 sacks, he pencils himself in as a 3-4 defensive end. If Jarrell Freeman doesn't get suspended for PEDs again, he will also be a Pro Bowler.
That's a guy I forgot with Freeman. Yeah, I'm going to go Freeman as well. He's such a high motor player. He's just a really smart, really good player. He's a guy that's going to be a Pro Bowl if he plays all 16.
If he plays all 16 games. As long as there's not a PED suspension, I would be confident in playing most of the games again. I think we can pretty much pencil in that. Hopefully in the coming years you see something at quarterback and at receiver. But those 5 guys, so we just said it, Jordan Howard, Leonard Floyd, Cody Whitehair, your 3 gems of the 2016 class, and Akeem Hicks and Jarrell Freeman. If you guys listening expect some Pro Bowlers, see that the Bears will actually have some representation this year. If you watch the Pro Bowl, if that's your thing. So that should just about wrap up this podcast. Lester, do you have any more thoughts before we get into – this is going to be a long grind for the next 5 or 6 months. Do you have any more thoughts before we start camp next week?
No. I mean, I think we got everything covered here. It should be a real fun camp. I know we have at least 3 of our guys are going to be down there in camp covering things. So we should have a lot of really cool stuff on the site.
I even have the sun hat. No one can see this, but only Lester can see this. I have the sun hat already prepared for the heat there.
He's ready.
I'm ready to bring you guys 75% Leonard Floyd coverage, and then occasionally see something else in the other position group.
That's fine.
I'll give you guys extra insight there. All right, that just about wraps up this episode of WCG Radio on Windy City Gridiron of SB Nation. I'm Robert Zaglinski, here with Editor-in-Chief of WCG, Lester Wilfon. Follow Lester on Twitter at Wilfon Jr. Follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski. Follow us as a website on Twitter at WC Gridiron. Follow we're going to have a lot of coverage coming up over the next month or so, and obviously the season's going to start rolling around, and we're just going to really kill it as usual. I mean, if you know what to expect, we're bringing you unique insights as best as possible, and with Bourbonnais now on the way, we actually have football to analyze and discuss, guys. I know it's finally here. Just be patient. It's finally here. The dead period is almost over. Have a good night, everybody. Stay classy.